Welcome everybody. This is the Meshery development call. Today is 14th July and we are 5 after and we can get started. And if Anita has not yet joined, we can move the announcement a bit down. And I don't know if there are any newcomers on this call. So we have this tradition where newcomers get to introduce themselves and on the call. So if this is your first time on this particular call, please introduce yourself so that everyone can get to know you.
Hello, I'm Surya Dipta. I have joined just a few days back, and I have attended a meeting day before yesterday. But this is my first meeting in this particular topic. I'm glad to be here.
Thank
Nice.
you.
Yes. Sorry, Deepta, you're on the website's call. If you
Yes.
would just refresh those that haven't gotten, or tell those that haven't gotten to meet you, a little bit about yourself. Where are you calling in from? What are you
Uh,
currently doing?
I'm currently in my third year in college. I've I've taken up interest in web development and for quite some time actually, and I've come a little bit. I mean, it's a huge subject. Like knowing about it, it takes a lot of time. But I've enjoyed every bit, and I just hope I get to learn more. I know I will get to learn more here with all those with everyone here. I mean, it's kind of overwhelming for me, but it's fun to be here as well.
Nice. Yeah. There's a lot of JavaScript libraries. I think there was probably one just announced 10 seconds ago. I think it's like
Yeah.
every 20 seconds. Cool. Nice to have you. And then
Thank you.
Anand Tirtha just joined. So Anand, welcome and surprise. We ask every newcomer to say hi and introduce themselves. Do you mind just saying a couple words?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. So, hi. How are you?
Good. Good morning. Good evening. Where are you calling in from? What?
From India. So it's actually good night for me. Yeah. Evening. Yeah. So I'm not that much of a newcomer. I mean, I just did the issue today. I think I reached out to you.
Yeah. No, it's me. It's I'm the only freckle-faced, guy here.
So yeah, I did that. And I'm waiting for a review.
Great.
That's
Let's get in line, buddy. I don't know. No, that's actually that's a good topic to say. Is that I don't know if anyone is so Anand, very nice to talk to you. Nice to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
But also on that subject, I don't know if anyone has noticed, but we've had like up on average 30 open pull requests for the last 3 weeks or so. That's like one of those problems. That's a really nice problem to have, kind of a thing. Like, awesome. People are making waves. They're making changes. They're improving upon the projects. I don't know if everyone realizes this. I think Anand does for sure now. But Amisha, who's also maybe new on the call, it would be good for everyone to hear this. And that is, if you see an open pull request and you have a comment, a thought, a question even, like, provide a review. Like, I think, it only takes thinking about this for about 2 seconds, and it's pretty much universally true. People like to get feedback on things that they've done. Like, it feels, if no one says anything, it's sort of like, well, either everyone's extremely busy or no one cares. And that's not the case. It's that people are either A, busy, or not all of us recognize that you might have something to say. Everyone is welcome to review a pull request. Everyone is welcome to open an issue. So go forth, open. So don't take this as me saying open less PRs. In fact, let's see if we can maybe average 40 open PRs. I don't know, like maybe that's the wrong metric. Let's see how many we can open and merge, how quickly that's the right metric, I think. But I feel knowing that occasionally people are waiting on me and they're waiting on a litany of others that are on the call that are either maintainers or other regular contributors. Guilt overwhelms me at the end of the day for, when seeing someone's PR that's been outstanding for a while, and maybe they haven't even gotten a comment on it. And so please, do yourself a favor, learn at the same time that you're giving feedback to someone else. So it's a great way to digest what's going on and to keep pace. So yeah, Navendu, back to you. Got lost in my thoughts.
Anyone else who is new on this call and would like to introduce themselves?
Oh no, I scared one off. Wait, hold on. Oh no, Amisha is still there. Good. Oh, the audio is off. Okay.
Okay, Amisha, like if you are having audio problems, you can introduce yourself in the chat.
And since you can't hear, yeah, actually their audio is disconnected. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I'll get chatty and let you take back the meeting.
Sure. So Anita had an announcement, which was like we have many different meetings in the layer 5 community, and if you head on to meet.layer5.io, you can see the community calendar, and as you can see, we have meetings almost every day. So one of the meetings is a community meeting, which happens on Fridays. So, and Anita had a, 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 a call for participation in creating this week's agenda. So there is a topic opened on discuss, which is our community facing forum. So you can discuss on that to set up a meeting agenda for this Friday. I don't think Abhishek has joined yet. He is having some network issues. Lee, would you like to talk about this?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in real quick. One, I'll say it's nice to see Dhruv. Like Dhruv, wow. Dhruv is the only other brave soul to have his webcam on. That's so. Oh, Soham joining the ranks. Very good. Neck and neck, Soham and Dhruv. I don't know. Oh, Piyush. There we go. Okay. So anyway, I think you all get my point, which is it's really nice to see people. So even if your hair isn't done, if you have a COVID cut, if you're 20 pounds overweight like I am from last year from COVID and refrigerator being within reach, then it's fine. Turn your webcams on. So there was a release of Meshery that was done just 45, an hour, 45 minutes ago. Abhishek Kumar, he's a maintainer of Meshery and a couple of the other projects. He made a release of Meshery. I think the thing that probably, and so, yeah, if you don't mind to bring up the docs, the release notes real quick. This release, the release prior to 0537 was done just a couple of days ago. So this one's pretty tiny. And I think, and as I go to mute owner, please don't take offense, but if you do have something to say, please come off mute. Anyway, this is a point release. I think the thing that probably propelled it forward in terms of making the release today, well, in large part, I think Piyush and maybe Navendi will talk about some things that are happening inside of Meshery's command line client. There were a couple of key fixes that needed to get out and into the stable release. So it's good. We'll also see some things from Jean Tiston. She's joined us any number of times from the Philippines and has been doing some work in Meshery UI, some popular work actually. So we'll see that in the stable release as well. It's good. By the way, this is another area of, like, I think on Meshery, this particular project, I'm not sure if there have been about 5 or 6 different individuals who have made a release. I think there's about 6. And that doesn't need to be the case. Like, making the act of making the release is really simple. It's actually a button click. And so we need other people to do such a thing. It's kind of a fun thing to do because it's kind of a big deal, but it's a small deal in terms of clicking the mouse. So if you're into continuous integration and building release topics, well, there's a bi-weekly meeting on Thursday led by the maintainer Rudolfo. I encourage you to join, and I encourage someone else to make the next release.
Thank you, Lee. Yeah, I have shared all the details in the chat below. So you can join the community meeting, the CI meeting that's happening tomorrow, and it can be found in the community calendar. So let's move on to today's topics. First up, we have Ashish. Ashish, would you like to talk about this here?
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone. This is my first time in this meeting. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm a third year computer science undergraduate based in Delhi. So I recently started contributing to Meshery CTL, and this was the issue that I saw Lee created, and it was basically to add just a token location inside of that context struct while we are printing out from Meshery CTL system context view. So I'm just quickly sharing my screen. If you allow me to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Is my screen visible?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Okay, so yeah. So right now this is the config.yaml. So we have the tokens here and the context here. So right now, as you can see in the config.yaml, I haven't specified the token for the default. I haven't specified the default token inside of the tokens array. So if I do the Meshery CTL system context view all, it gives out a warning that token default could not be found for context local. So the format is simple. It just says the token, then token name could not be found for context, then the context name. And here for the context, it found the token, it prints out the token location. And for the context that it didn't find the location, it does not. So now if I quickly, if I log in and create a token,
I can feel a seizure coming on. Oh,
nothing special is happening. I'm just logging in. Am I going?
Yeah,
Did I click too many stuff?
It's flickering. It's flickering for me too.
Okay. Is it flickering right now?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's still flickering.
Yep.
Okay. So shall I stop this to screen share and then do it again?
If you would,
okay.
Please.
Okay. I'm sorry, I did not know.
Now how could you know that you were causing epileptic?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Is it visible right now?
I think we're good. We're good to, oh,
Yeah.
you know what? It's
Okay.
tolerable. It's tolerable.
Okay, thank you. So now, as I have authenticated, so if I'll see this new token has been added here, the default token with its location. So if I do Meshery system context view, it'll print out the token location as well. Now, if I can just now there is some other warning also. For example, if I comment out the token completely, and now I run the MCTL system context view. Now the warning, wait, I actually commented out for the wrong thing. Wait. Yeah, so inside of here, as you can see, right now I have my both the tokens for both the contexts. So if I comment out the default token, and if I save it, and I do now, this time the token is empty. There is no token location, of course, and the warning differs that token not specified /empty for context and the context name. So there are two different warnings for two different use cases, and that's it. That's all I added in that issue. Do you want me to tell the implementation or?
I have a question that like, when do we hit this issue with the tokens?
The issue was basically to print out the token location. It was like it was less of an issue, more like a feature you also want to display to enhance the context view. So it was less like an issue.
Okay, I got it.
And Piyush, did you have? I wasn't able to keep up with the PR, but if I recollect, you had.
Actually, there were no unit tests available at that time, and Piyush said that he would he would create a PR, and we would get into the unit testing, and once we have the tests, then he'll merge the PR.
Nice. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. Well, so Ashish, I think you might have broken a record. So not to give you a big ego or anything, but like at first you weren't going to do it. Like, hey, other people have joined, introduced themselves for the first time, and then like demoed a PR, which is like, not typical, which is fantastic. But then you had to take it a little bit further. You've already got an alias set up for Meshery CTL. Like it's like you've been here for 3 months. So.
No, actually, it's my habit. If I don't like long commands, anything more than 5 letters or 6 letters, I create an alias for it.
Yeah, totally. I'm waiting for you to reduce it down to M. I mean, I don't know what we're doing with those other 3 letters, but
that would be way too less descriptive. So
sure. Yeah. It's good to see that. One of the things that that you've done here, and that is good for others to digest, is is test cases, and ideally done in the form of unit tests or integration tests, but if for nothing else, just test cases. So Ashish is demonstrating a great practice of an understanding that even like if you consider the scope of the ask for this particular PR, it is, like to put it as simply as possible, it's doing nothing other than just reading from a text file and printing out some info from that text file. And while that sounds extraordinarily simple and like there couldn't be edge cases there, no, there are, and there's more than what are written here. And so they almost always come back to bite you in the butt, and they almost like bite you in the rear end immediately. It's like and it's all the common stuff. It's stuff like, well, what happens if you gave a null value for that token? What happens if the token is malformed? What happens if you give 2 tokens? What happens if the token is expired? Oh, geez. And then you just, the list goes on. Like, what happens if I have a really weird name for the token? What happens if I don't have a location for this? It just goes on. So Ashish, like, I think we're going to be friends. This is great. Just need to get Piyush to, get a move on. Like, hurry up with those unit tests.
I
Anyway,
think we have, sorry, I am interrupting. I think we have to merge it first and then create some unit tests, because that would help better, like actually testing out the behavior of the command. Did that make sense?
Yep, so, yep, yes, indeed.
Yeah, good.
Other feedback for Ashish?
One question I had is the token should be a separate construct, right? Like in the config file, Meshery config file, we can have multiple tokens, and each token will have a name and a location. So inside a context, why do we have to specify the location to the token?
Can you please repeat the question?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe I'll regurgitate it just so that you know. Boy, I'm trying to think of a different way. So the goal of the issue, the issue that was raised, is really in acknowledgement of what Navendu is saying, which is when you deal with mesh config, which is the name that we use to refer to config.yaml. You'll find, if you've installed Meshery CTL, you'll find config.yaml, this mesh config that Ashish is showing. You'll find it under your local user's hidden folder, or hidden folder under your user's home directory. .meshery is the name of the folder, and then there's a config.yaml. And when you run Meshery CTL, oh man, vmesh, that's awesome. When you run Meshery CTL system context view, you will see your current context. That configuration file, config.yaml, it may very well have more than one context. A context represents a Meshery deployment. You might deploy Meshery to AKS, or to locally on Kubernetes, or locally on Docker, and just like if you've used kubectl, the command line client for Kubernetes, you might have different Kubernetes environments you want to connect to, so you want to switch between them. And so that's what these contexts are, is like provides people the ability to switch between Meshery deployments. Well, great. And then the credentials that you use to connect to each of those different Meshery deployments, maybe that's the same credential. And by credential, I mean token. Maybe that's the same token, or maybe that's a different token. And so tokens are treated and dealt with independently. So there's a list of tokens. And right now in this mesh config, there's just one. It's called, the location of it is in the same folder at auth.json is the name of the file. And then the user-friendly name that refers to that token is called default in this mesh config. And so to Navendu's point, you might have 10 different tokens. And so that's why those are tracked separately. The ask in the issue is when someone runs this command, Meshery CTL system context view, previously, and I guess currently, since this PR hasn't merged, what you would be seeing is, I think, just the name of the token. And that's helpful. Like, good. Oh, it's using the default token. Oh yeah, where's that default token again? I don't know. What command do I run to figure that out? I don't know. There will be forthcoming commands for dealing with tokens, Meshery CTL system token, such and such. But the ask was like to just circumvent part of the need to run a separate command and just show some details. Since that's the token that's being used for this context, go ahead and retrieve the additional details like in this case, it would be location and spit that out. So now that in some respects, that's like a user experience thing. And so that's, you know, user experience items are almost, they're not endlessly debatable, but people have different perspectives. And so for the most part, well, we've talked about this any number of times, it's worth saying it every single time it comes up. And that is that good, high quality user experiences are those that are consistent. So if we're going to consistently show all the details, and you know, like in this example, we should consistently do that elsewhere. And there are enough commands. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about 2 new emergent commands, and I just mentioned one, which would be a third. One is token, one is a subcommand called mesh, and another one is just a recap of the perf command. They all have subcommands, they all have flags, and they all have parameters, and they all have global flags, and they all have a lot of the same verbs. And like, so we want to be consistent with the use of the terms that we're using, so we can help people feel really confident when they execute a Meshery CTL command, that when they said apply over here, that apply means the same thing over here, as an example. So Navendu, I figured I'd answer the question at the same time.
Yeah, thank you. To answer Vijay's question, like we can switch between context with the switch command. So if I do this, and if I do, now the current context is switched. So yeah. Anybody else have any other comments to?
Yeah, I do. Like, uh, do we need to specify that many things for defining a token? Like uh, in kubectl config, they basically have instead of defining multiple tokens like we are in our config, they define multiple users. And they only have one field called token, in which either it will have the name of the file which has the token or the token itself. And they define multiple users instead of name of multiple tokens. Does that make more sense instead of defining name of the token, name of the location, and in future if we just want to save the token itself with the YAML, then
Anybody else? Yeah. It's a good. Put a pin in that question. Like we should circle back to that as and when more than just JOTs are supported. Like, you know, so right now a token in Meshery, like the only way to authenticate to Meshery is using a token, and that's won't always be true. The component of Meshery that deals with identity, which therein I deals with authentication and authorization. I'm saying things that Dhruv already knows, but that's the provider. And there's a built-in local provider, and then there are any number of remote providers that anyone can write and plug into Meshery. And those remote providers, well, they may provide authentication in different ways. And irrespective, like whatever mechanism they use to identify a user, maybe they have the user do a biometric fingerprint on something and they authenticate them, and that's unknown to Meshery. All Meshery says is, when you're done identifying this user, you need to return back a valid JWT, a valid JOT access token. And so currently, like, that's why we deal with tokens and not users. But it's something to openly reflect on. Like right now, I would I would make the analogy between, I would say that tokens are to Meshery as users are to Kubernetes. Like, and so maybe in the future we need to have a higher level construct like a user in Meshery, and then underneath the user there would be tokens and certificates and other things, you know, like, and that's why I say to maybe put a pin in that question because it's we should come back to it.
All right. Thank you, Dhruv. And anyone else have anything to add? Any comments for Ashish? Okay, so I guess Piyush will go ahead and review this, and we can start working on the unit test. Moving on to the next item, we had a Meshery CTL bug hunt this Saturday, and Piyush, would you like to recap what happened there?
Okay, hi. So we had it on last Saturday. We tested out a lot of commands, and we found some of the major bugs that were related to Meshery CTL version and the issues with Kubernetes requirement, even when the platform is Docker. So some of them has been rectified, and you might not see them in the latest release that was made today. And if you was not able to contribute in this meeting, so you can head to this Excel and check out the commands here and test them out on your local machine. We have mentioned the expected outcome, how it should behave, and stuff like that. If it is not working according to that, it is not working how it's supposed to be, you can start some discussion in Messery CTL channel in Slack, so we can actually hunt them down and solve them. So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Piyush. And to add to Piyush's comment, we also have test plans for other areas of Meshery, like UI operator and server. So it's also in the same spreadsheet, and let me share that with you. It basically has some actions and test scenarios, and any one of you can test these out and report if there are any bugs. So this is in relation to the next release, which is happening soon. So most of these bugs needs to be fixed before that. And for Meshery CTL, we have a Meshery CTL command tracker, which basically tracks the progress of each commands. So if there are any cells which are not green, then that is an area that needs to be worked upon. So there are a lot of open issues in the Meshery repo regarding this, and anyone can jump in and fix those. And we also have a couple of issues open with for the next release, for the next milestone, and these are also, some of these are not yet assigned, and yeah, you can work on it, and I'll share the links in the chat. Yeah, anybody have any questions? I'll just share the links in the chat, and so let's move on. I hope Abhishek is on the call. Abhishek, would you like to talk about your some of your new commands?
Sure. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah.
So let me just quickly share my screen. So
Yeah.
the items have been.
My apologies. I guess I have a fat finger today. Sorry. Back to Abhishek.
Yeah. So the items I've been working on today were two commands in Meshery CTL. One is perf command, which I'll be talking about first. So as we all know that we have a command called meshery perf apply, which currently is used for running performance test with meshery. So this is how you initially or currently would do a performance test by passing in flags of different values. I do have my Meshery server running in my local, so I'm just keeping up that part. Uh, so when you run a performance test with a flag, this is what you get back. And the feature that I've added now is basically to run a performance test with a performance test config, and this config is basically incompatible with service mesh specification. So I have already also created a topic on discuss, which basically has a sample of what the test config would look like. So this is exactly what I'm using currently. And in this config, as you can see, I have passed in the test profile ID, the name of the test, and all the other parameters I needed for running the test, like the number of connections, RPS, and what are the list of endpoints I need to hit, and etc. So so this basically you have a flag called hyphen file, which you can use to pass in a test config and run a performance test. And currently it behaves exactly the same as how the other command does. So this is something that I've added. Uh, I'll wait for the feedback first, and then I'll proceed for the next item. Does anyone have any comments?
Me, hey, if you would consider this, this would be nice, or it would be nice if you would consider this, which is when the test completes, if it's possible to let the user know either the ID of the result, the test result, so they can go look it up or something.
Yes, I did look up for that, and having that will be a little bit of complication because the result ID is being generated when after we post the result to the provider. So we'll need a stream connection in order to get the result ID back, which will be asynchronous. So we can implement it. It's just not a single step process is what I meant. The second challenge here is that we have an API called slash API. 1 second, I'll just open that. So we have an API called slash API slash perf slash load test SNPS. And I'm not sure if anyone have tested this API because it does not actually work as expected. Basically, the issue with this is that it does not post your results to the provider, and this is what is being used in the file when you do a performance test with the file. This is API is what is being used, so that is something that needs to be looked at the next after this feature. So just a heads up. Yeah, so does anyone else have any comments? Cool. Cool. I'll just move on to the next item in that case.
Quick question. I realize Abhishek, this is, like this, if a user is going to do this, maybe all bets are off, but it seems to me that, for an earnest user, someone who's, pretty serious about a programmatic, using Meshery programmatically to run performance tests and then kind of examine their results and et cetera, that that they are most likely to manage the performance profiles in a file like you were just showing. They might also run multiple slightly tweaked versions of that same performance profile, and they might want to do it literally without having a second profile. I maybe, like, most of the time people are going to just create another profile and it'll be very similar to the first one, and they'll change one from running from 30 minutes to an hour or whatever they're changing. But that begs the question: if someone provides they do Meshery CTL perf apply -f, they give the file. If they also give another argument that is duplicative of details found in the file, do you know it would be worth testing to see if we are, I think we were in the past, if we're overriding, treating the provided parameters as overrides or not?
It does not override now.
And so it just ignores.
Yeah, it just sticks to the file.
It could be that, do you recollect if Meshery CTL prints a statement saying ignoring parameters and using file?
No, it does not print that statement either. It doesn't print.
Cool.
What do you want to include that?
Yeah, that could be something for an interested contributor. Like, a good way for someone to get into Meshery CTL is to just sort of add that.
Got it.
It's kind of a freebie. Like, if anyone's paying attention, it's under perf apply.go, like line 73-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah, actually, it's just an if else, which basically, if you don't provide a file path, it just switches back to else. It doesn't honor anything else.
Cool. I guess that's today's freebie. So, okay.
All right. So yeah, so that's I'll move on to my next item, which basically involves Meshery CTL mesh command. And for this purpose, I'm just starting to adapters to connect to Meshery so that we can do some operations with service meshes. So what Meshery CTL mesh command does is basically manages life cycle of service mesh inside a cluster with CLI. So I'll just show the initial state. Basically, I got adapters. Not sure if they're connected, why they're not showing up. Let's just log in back. Oops. Okay, my adapters are being connected, but it does not reflect on the UI. Let's do this. Cool. So I connected a Nestio adapter and a Kuma adapter for now for this demo. And just go and I'll also display what the cluster is, or in fact, so I'm gonna use Minikube as a Kubernetes orchestrator. What my command would do is basically I'll just give a command saying Meshery mesh deploy and the name of the service mesh, and pass in the token as well. So it should go install Istio in my cluster. And I'll just wait for my cluster to start up to show this particular thing. All right, so it's a fresh cluster, and I'll initialize my kube config. So when I go ahead and execute this command, it first asks me which adapter to use. And it only shows me the option for Istio adapter because I specified Istio as a service mesh here. And right now I'm canceling this. I'm canceling this because I need to show one more flag that is available, which is -- adapter. If you pass this URL in as a flag, then it will skip through the interactive session, and then it will directly go install install Istio. And so yeah, so that's basically what this command does. And just confused about what happened with the adapter.
And
yeah, so basically this command executes. So there is an issue with adapter probably. So I'll just skip ahead and talk about the command first. So this command basically what it does is it installs whatever the service mesh that you specify here in your cluster. And in order to remove it, you have Meshery CTL mesh remove command. And these are the two commands that are available right now. Yeah, so these are the two commands that are available right now. And regards to the adapter,
yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I hate to do this. I want to if we can, urgently get to Jubril and Rudraksh's GitHub action. This is fantastic. I think the demo that you've given, like it's okay if you conveyed the concept and it's good. And people that and I expect some people do have questions as to what else Meshery CTL mesh might do in the future. And so please see Abhishek. It's good.
Yeah, all right. So let's move on to the next item.
Yeah, thank you, Abhishek. Yeah, as Lee mentioned, there are some open areas to work around this. Moving on to the next item, we have Rudraksh and Jubril who have some cool GitHub actions with Meshery CTL. Would you like to show us some of that?
Yes, I'll quickly share my screen, and so hopefully it's visible. And basically we were creating an action for performing SMI conformance validation. I always take my time to write the name of that repo because it's so big. Basically, this is where you can find it, and it performs SMI conformance validation on a given service mesh. Now, SMI is a spec. I won't dig deeper into that. Meshery can be used to perform SMI conformance. It acts like a tool for performing SMI conformance validation. We were able to do it using UI, and with some fixes to the mesh validate command, we can now do it using Meshery CTL as well. And this action uses that feature of Meshery CTL. So basically, let's start with the configuration. This is a workflow using that action, and you can see there are various fields, one for provide a token, one for platform to deploy Meshery, one specifying the spec to validate in case we plan in future to expand it to perform other tests as well. And this is where we specify the service mesh. Corresponding fields here. And yeah, basically it would call a main.js file just to call a shell script. This is a very dirty way, but a better way to avoid JavaScript and TypeScript dependencies. And this is where it all begins. It would get the arguments, I mean, the various configurations that you pass here, and pass it to another file, another shell script, which in turn would set up Meshery on a K8s cluster. And if it's not present, the cluster is not present for the purpose of the test, it would create one. But right now we need a cluster is present with the service mesh installed. This is where we are validating the token and all stuff related to deploying Meshery. And this is where the SMI conformance tests happen. Right now, this is hard coded to depend only on a Minikube cluster with Docker drivers, because this is still a MVP. And we'll expand to other clusters and providers like EKS, AKS in the future, in very near future, I suppose. Also, this is right now using a binary that I released on my own with mesh validate patched. But I guess now, after the latest release and my pull request merge, we will update it to fetch the latest binary from Meshery using that script. I mean, we don't need this at all. And yeah, so basically this is where all stuff happens. And this is a sample workflow for it. We're using a action to deploy Minikube cluster and with Docker driver, because right now the action depends on it. Install OSM on that cluster, and then performing a semi-conformance validation on this. Mesh validate needs another thing. I'll just show a run of the action to demonstrate it. Basically, this is the run. Oh, why can't I scroll up? So yeah, this is the run of the action, and this is where mesh validate happens. And right now we don't have a way to, I mean, we don't tell them if the test completed successfully or not. It would be once a mesh validate has some sort of blocking code so that it blocks the terminal here and doesn't let it proceed. And this is just a simple check that this is not a part of the action. This is just a check that I created to see if the proper namespaces and the clusters are getting deployed, which generally get deployed when performing SMI conformance validation. So basically, this was it. Now, the next and very important step in this should be authenticating with the token, and we have not been able to do so because I'm not sure if I can use that token in this action. I mean, I generated one by signing into Twitter on my local system, the remote provider. But when I try to use this token here, I get this error. same on my local system, and I have created a thread here. So yeah, let's discuss it there and save time on this call.
Yeah, Rudraksh, you might be, and maybe you are, and I missed it. You might be able to use the new Meshery CTL system login. No, you can't do that.
No, that I think that also depends on UI. Somehow it will take you to a browser window.
Right.
So I guess I can now.
Right. Jubril, did you overcome this token challenge using it inside of a workflow previously?
No, I actually hit a different bug, which was the EOF thing, where I used the token you gave me, but that didn't seem to be working.
Okay, so this remains an outstanding challenge for you as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And this would be the one that we'll use to sync with the cloud provider, and so that the person who are running the test can see if it would run successfully. Without this, I don't think that this action makes much use. So it's better if you figure out this quick. I don't know if it's exactly some mistake on our side or on the server side, because this behavior even happens on my local system when I delete a cluster and try the previous auth token with a new cluster.
Taking mental notes. Yeah, I couldn't. We'll have to, I don't know. By the way, hey, just for everybody's, that's just another thing to call out since there's a lot of us on the call. I just said, I don't know. I guess my point is like most of you are like, it's okay to say that. And like, of course, I don't know. I don't know half the stuff these guys just said. Like, that's okay. So anyway, I just wanted to help disseminate that culture that like, it's okay. You don't know. Of course you don't know. Of course I don't know. Anyway, Rudraksh, let me say this really briefly, because I want to highlight the work that Jubril and Rudraksh are doing. First of all, Jubril and I have submitted to go speak on this topic, and we'll see if we do at North America Linux, what is it, the Open Source Summit? So hopefully we do. Maybe we get to, maybe Jubril and I would get to hang out in person, maybe. That'd be great. So thanks for that, Rudraksh. But the second, so I guess my point of saying that is like, hey, if you're doing things here, let's go talk about it. I'd love to, like, you can go talk about it by yourself. Go grab one of the slides. And there's a bunch of slides in our community drive. VJ just made a deck. Actually, 2 other people just made a deck and presented them on Monday's filters call. And go talk about them. But if you want to talk about them at a conference as well, and you want help writing that thing, let's, writing the proposal, let's do that. The second thing I wanted to call out here is the importance of the work with respect to service mesh interfaces. SMI, service mesh interface, is another project that Meshery is the conformance tool for. So there are 5 or 6 service meshes that have implemented against service mesh interface, against that set of specifications. Well, how does someone know if a service mesh has implemented according to the specifications? Like, there need to be conformance tests, validation tests. Well, Meshery is the tool for that. And on this particular site, if you go to its latest blog, you would see that Meshery is listed there. And so what Jubril and Rudraksh are creating here with this GitHub action is a way of empowering not only each of the service meshes, those projects, to easily integrate Meshery's conformance testing into their build pipelines, because they can take that GitHub action and just add it as a workflow, and then they can start self-validating and self-reporting. So it's really neat. There's a new SMI controller SDK that's being written, and I know some of this is confusing for some of you, but anyway, or is new turf for some of you. And anyway, point is, this particular GitHub action could then, we will likely create a template, a GitHub repository template that goes into the Service Mesh interface project. So that project is close to Meshery. So there's SMI, and by the way, on this topic, I'm going to send a link real quick, and probably we'll go get this published somewhere. But SMI, SMP, Service Mesh Performance, Service Mesh Interface, these are two specifications. They're just API specifications, basically. That's technically incorrect, not API, but whatever. Anyway, two specifications that say, here's how you use a mesh, here's how you manage its performance. And then Meshery implements both of them, and it provides validation for SMI. At some point, it should provide validation for SMP as well. And so hopefully that gives context as to what the tools that are being worked on are doing. I'll send a link to a horrifically ugly Venn diagram that shows how these projects overlap. And that's why I'm doing this, because there's a Venn diagram that shows how they overlap. So with that, Rudraksh and Jibril, thank you guys. We'll get this token thing figured out. So.
Yep. So I guess another item we are continuing. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Rudraksh, and thank you, Jibril. We are way out of time, so I guess we will keep some of these items to the next meeting. So before we go, we have a couple of call for participations, one of which is Meshery CTL unit testing. So I have shared a link in chat to it's an epic issue. So Piyush is looking for volunteers to participate, and I think Piyush will share a doc in Slack that explains how you can write unit test. And we also have we are also in need of a volunteer to move the FAQ session under the contributing docs. So we have a contributing session in Meshery docs. So if you are looking to start somewhere, so you can start with moving this FAQ doc under the contributing section. Does anyone else have any other items that needs to be discussed? Okay, then so thank you everyone for joining. I hope I will see you on Friday on the community call or next week. For newcomers, we have a newcomers meeting tomorrow, and we also have a CI working group meeting. So check out the community calendar for that. And thank you. I'll see you.
Thanks, Navedu. Bye all.
Bye.
Bye.